Hello, everybody. It is May the 8th, 2019. As I'm apt to do occasionally, I would like to take the opportunity this evening to give you all some updates on what is going on in relation to Scientology currently and the things that I'm working on as well. And to begin with, I guess the most important thing is upon the release of Scientology Infinity recently, which I'd like to thank you all for go ahead and purchasing and all the support that you've given me from that. It's went out into the field and it's beginning to get some incredible results and some traction as well. So that will be very fundamental in our progress moving forward. And it is a great thing because it is an extremely well written book. It's easy to get results from it, and of course, it's easy to understand. So, for the layman or the person that's just beginning with Scientology, or as we begin to disseminate a bit more as these new series of technologies come out, it will be very important to have that as a tool. And that was one of the major purposes that it was written for. Even though the processing in it is applicable to the newcomer as well as the veteran Scientologist. So thank you again, everyone, for your support as far as Scientology Infinity is concerned. And if you can, you have purchased that, please take the time to go ahead and leave a 5-star review or 4-star, whatever you feel necessary, on Amazon.com. That will help greatly. Not too many people have done that yet. I understand a lot of people are busy, and that can be, or life can be a bit hectic at times, which I understand. But if you do find yourself with a little bit of extra time, that would be a great help to me, as well as the field too. So that being said, along the subject of books, I'm slotted to hopefully write 2 more by the end of this year. It's not definitive. I can say definitively I will probably get at least 1 out by the end of the year. And that will more than likely be entitled Scientology '09. So again, it will be a book covering the newest, most cutting-edge processing procedures. So of course, that will not be a book for the beginning Scientologist or somebody who doesn't have some type of prior experience with Scientology and or Dianetics. But if anyone has read the catalog of basic books for Scientology, then it shouldn't be too much of a stretch or an issue. And again, it'll be written in the newer formatting and style that I wrote Scientology Infinity in. Trying to move away a bit from the complicated, terminologies and things like this. Unless somebody's already well abreast of the subject, it's not even necessary. So, and of course, it's more of the responsibility for the experienced practitioner to be able to, interpret the easier format and then go ahead and utilize that in their own practice and in their processing. Versus somebody who's not familiarized with the subject, who then go ahead and try to learn a bunch of things at extreme difficulty, time, and cost to themselves. So again, for that purpose, it'll probably be written in the easier format and without a lot of the complicated terminology and words and definitions that we've priorly had with Dianetics and Scientology. But again, it will cover the most powerful and cutting-edge techniques and procedures today, specifically Technique '09 that I've released to the field in HCOB format, or in bulletin format, excuse me. And it'll be in-depth on the subject of the underlying principles that were leading up to and the discoveries leading up to New Era Scientology and those commands that we were initially running with New Era Scientology, as well as negative plus and minus processing, which then culminated with this, as we're calling it now, Technique '09. And there may be 2 to 3 forms or versions of that that are applicable to different types of people and different types of lifestyles. So again, I'll have all the detail, the background, the discoveries to cover that topic and to successfully run this type of processing. And again, it's not going to be a cookie cutter routine. It's going to be something that very similar to the book auditing. And one failing that we have is we never, particularly with Dianetics and Scientology, had and this was frustrating to a lot of people and confusing to a lot of them as well, is we never specifically had an applicable Scientology type or a Scientology-like therapy similar to what we had with Dianetics, where you got individual incidents, engrams, things or difficulties or items that were bothering an individual. Then you could trace these things back along different types of flows, whether it happened to them, or it happened because of another person, or it happened because of a group of people, etc., and be able to hit everything from those different aspects and hit everything from those different areas. And then, of course, you had what was termed erasure, and these things no longer bothered a person. These traumatic experiences, habits, and other types of unoptimal or unwanted behaviors would then erase, and they would simply go away. In an effort to streamline everything, of course, Scientology worked very similar, except there was separate compartmentalized grades, as most of you already know. But there was never a free form or a book one, or the techniques found in Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health. There was never a free form or flowing technique with the principles and the application of Scientology like we had with Dianetics, of course, in the early days. So Technique 09 is probably the closest thing we will come to that, and it will more than likely be from all the data that's being collected in the field, the things that I've seen in auditing sessions, I've seen in my own personal sessions. It will be the last body and set of technology that will ever be needed. It will be the cap, and it will be the cornerstone or the keystone or capping stone, however you want to look at that. Kind of the key that unlocks the rest of the subject that will be applicable to all the rest of the technology, Dianetics. Any auditing procedure or process can be run via or with the principles found in Technique 09, cutting the time down to 1/2, sometimes 1/4 of the time necessary, doubling the applicable results, and almost tripling the efficacy of the processing itself. And that's what I initially set out to do here. If you recall, when I set out and published or released Infinity Procedure, that came very, very close, but didn't quite hit the mark. And again, it began to predict more phenomena moving forward than what I had expected initially. So, of course, it led to this new track of research, and this is what we arrived at. So, excuse me. So, that being said, that will be the first book. Now, the second one, again, is very, very exciting, and I mentioned this in the New Era Scientology Begins group on Facebook. The secondary one is I have finally... Well, let me ask you this, and it's something we've all seen, something we've all experienced or witnessed at one time or another. I know I have. You go about your daily business, and you run into individuals in life, at your work. Sometimes they're friends of friends. Sometimes they're even family that you think you know them all of your life, or you think they're a decent individual. And then just at some point or another, and for no logical reason, a lot of the times, their behavior completely changes. They were a great, loving father. You never would have thought there was anything wrong with them. They always took care of their family. They always fulfilled their duties and obligations. And one day they just snap. And then you find out they were eating people, or, they had bodies stashed in the basement, or they decided to jump out of the 30th store window of the business they work at. And it just makes no sense. Everybody is shocked. Everyone's crying. They feel grief. Everyone feels anxiety, fear, anger, etc. And everyone is wondering, how could this possibly happen? I believe we've all had an experience like that. I mean, I know I have. I've had it happen over the years with some close friends and even a couple of family members. And it makes no logical sense. And of course, psychiatries and psychology, they never come close to explaining that. even in Dianetics and Scientology, there have just been some things that there was no explicable explanation for people's behavior. Though I had an assumption for a long, very, very long time that there had to be some type of, and I published this in the Axiom of Infinity, the basic that we are a collection of, that a Thetan or a spiritual being is a collection of their whole track experience. Now, what this essentially means is, if then again you believe in reincarnation and these types of things, and that we have multiple consecutive lifetimes or experiences as a spiritual being, that when these things occur, you then have, or a person's behavior then is formulated and it defines who they are as an actual being. And you cannot, once a bell is rung, ladies and gentlemen, it can be unrung from that point in the future. You know, and this applies to and across multiple consecutive lifetimes. So if an individual, let's say this lifetime, you know, they rob a bank, in the process shoot and kill somebody, it's a common occurrence on this planet. You know, they may even go to prison, get out later, live a law-abiding life from that point. But the point is, they can never unring that bell that the person that was shot and killed in the process, that can never be undone. It's just simply done. Now you can process somebody, they can go to a counselor, you know, you can run all these things out, you can put the individual in a state of mind, or you can rehabilitate that to the point where they forgive themselves, society forgives them, for instance. And, you know, it no longer bothers them. It's just another thing that happened. And they've made all the associated actions. And they've made restitution for what they've done. But it just does not change the fact that that happened. Now, that doesn't seem like, you know, much of a big deal. It's okay, it's one of these things that happens, right? But imagine that was done every consecutive lifetime, right? That would definitely formulate and begin to build a personality. The same way we have a personality here in one lifetime now that is formulated by our friends, our family members, what we're taught, how we're educated. For instance, the experiences we have, the people we come into contact with, the pleasant as well as the traumatic interactions that we have on a day-to-day basis will formulate and put us in a frame of mind or in a frame of personality in this one lifetime that defines, to an extent, who we are. Now, not completely, there's wiggle room there, you can deviate it, you can go completely outside of it. But my point is that that will define who you are. Now, if you done a certain set of actions or had a certain set of behaviors for, let's just say, millions of years. Say a person lives on average of 100 years, and they come back and back and back, and 20% of that, 20%, so 20% of their behavior and their actions are the same for each consecutive lifetime of 100 years each for 1,000,000 years. So they start here, 1,000,000 years later, they've had all these consecutive lifetimes. They lived for approximately 100 years each. And 20% of their behaviors, their actions, and the things that they do and the choices that they make are uniform and they are the same. Even though they're probably different with different individuals and different circumstances each time, but it's uniform across this period of time. Is it reasonable, or is there any expectation there that after this long, you then come into a new lifetime and halfway through it you just decide, let's say for instance that person was a warrior. They were a soldier, Greece, Rome, Samaria, earlier, etc., Atlantis, Lemuria, all throughout the universe, as early as you want to get, as far as you want to go with that, they were a warrior. That's what they did. That was their capacity. They liked to take people's heads off from the shoulders. They just liked being able to, at the end of the day, say, I survived the battle. That's it. That's all. That's what defined who the person was. And 20% of their actions and choices were always based upon them being a soldier. It may even be more than that. And you expect somebody halfway through this lifetime now, after a million consecutive years of this type of behavior and action, to now, halfway through it, say, I'm going to be a pastor, or I'm going to be a priest, I'm going to go be a clerk in a courthouse. Now, if somebody really has that urge to do that, it is possible to an extent. It is possible to the extent, and I've seen this, I've just seen it. It is to the extent that they will go and do everything necessary to be a cleric or do clerical work or be a paralegal, work in a law office, work in a courthouse, but it will not be who and what they are. It just won't. It just does not fit. Their actions do not fit, and they may even do all the right actions and all the right motions, but it just does not click. Have you ever experienced that? Because I sure know I have. I have this lifetime alone. I have. To where you want to do something, you set out to do something, and you set out to do it with Joe over here. You know, Joe's a friend of yours, and he's interested in the same thing as you. You both do it, and you do every action right. But this guy, man, he's just like, he's got the Midas touch. You know, everything he touches turns to gold. He does it. Every action he takes, he gets a pat on the back. They say, hey, Joe, nice job. You did that correctly. And here you are over here, and you know, you and Joe are friends, so of course you're always comparing notes. You're, you know, your best friends. You're taking every action, doing the same, mimicking, damn near, the same thing Joe is, get nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. People look at you funny, they treat you like you don't belong. No, you shouldn't be over here doing this. Oh, Joe, great job. Oh, no, that's not correct, sir. You didn't do that right. That's okay. You did all right. Just doesn't make sense. You can't click with everybody. No matter how well you try to communicate your desires and what you're trying to do, there's a blockade there. There's a wall. There's something preventing you. It's not real to you, and it's not real to the other individuals involved. It's because you don't belong. What you're trying to do is, at its basis, a lie. Because that's not what you should be doing. At your core, you know it as well as the other person. We all know it. There's a certain core part of us that we just know we should not be doing this thing. Though for whatever reason we're trying to, because we're trying to avoid something, we don't want to take responsibility for something, or we did something, or maybe we've just done that for so long that it is time to change. But like anything, this universe is based on certain set rules, and it has a certain set of laws that sometimes it may take consecutive years, may take years of effort. In this case, it probably takes thousands, hundreds of thousands, or maybe, worst case scenario, if you were this soldier or this warrior for a million years, maybe you now have to work at being something else for a million in these consecutive lifetimes. That hasn't been fully established. But my point here, and not to deviate from the subject that I'm discussing to make this too complicated, is the reason for all this, and if you've ever experienced that in your lifetime, I now have the solution, I believe, and I'm on the right track and path to tracing this down. I just need a bit more research on it, and then I can write it up in this secondary book, which will probably be called A History of Theta, to correlate with A History of Man. Theta being spirit and or spirits. So what it is going to outline is what I've discovered is there's a certain set of tracing back to the story of creation itself, which I've also believe I've finally unveiled after all this time, or a relative story of creation to where we are at now, okay, in our existence. And that there are a certain set, that we come from a certain number of spirit. We have a certain number, let me say this a different way. We have a certain number, or there is a certain number of spiritual lines, or lack of a better term, households, or we have a spiritual heritage in addition to a genetic, as well as a genetic evolution. We have a spiritual evolution, which was outlined in History of Man, but there were specific, at that time, specific types of beings that were to later define this spiritual heritage. And this spiritual heritage that we all hail from has a specific set of characteristics and traits. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm telling you here is one of the biggest mistakes we have made, or ever will make again, is believing we are human. Believing we are human is asinine. To say we are an immortal spiritual being, yet we are a human being, is asinine and is the root basis for so many of the humanitarian atrocities that are going on here on this planet and have been going on for a very, very long time. Because we are not being what we are meant to be. Now, a common thing these days you see, and this is a very difficult topic, especially for some of the old-time Scientologists, etc., but the homosexuality, or the not just homosexuality, but the trans, the gender, the different identities that people identify as these days, is a very, very good prime example of this. You have a lot of the transgender individuals now that will come out and say they believe, and there's actually truth to this, because if we have multiple lifetimes and or bodies, it may very well be that this person was a woman in a prior lifetime. And now you have men that come out and they say, well, I feel internally and at my root that I'm a woman or feminine, whatever the case may be. So they identify with that. Now, that's all good and well. We're not going to get into a discussion on the virtues of this, the ethics, or anybody's right or anything else. Legally, these people have a right to believe what they want, identify with whatever they want, and that's that. That's all I'll say for this. Well, that's all I'll say on that topic of conversation for now. But the problem arises with someone like that is they truly believe they are something other than what they are. And sometimes they go off and decide to be a woman, or vice versa. A woman goes off and decides to be a man, and do all these other things, take hormones, etc., transition and become something else, and fine, they are able to live out their life and live out their existence how they believe or feel they were meant to do that. Now, whether they say that is correct, aberrative, we're not going to get on those topic of discussions for now. But the point being is, I've actually met with a lot of these individuals this lifetime, and kind of gotten their viewpoints on life, spirituality, their sexuality, for instance. And a problem really, really arises when these people aren't able to enact and be what they feel they are at their core. So, and this is no different, but that is a very, very good prevailing and prime example, of what can occur. These people and these individuals end up depressed. It goes all the way down the line. So my point being is that, and even that is nothing new. You had people that for years they wanted to be athletes, they wanted to play baseball, football, be weightlifters, whatever the case may be bodybuilders, or they wanted to go into the Marines or the service, or they wanted to fly aircraft. There are so many things that individual would aspire to be. They just have this nagging sense. Now, I don't know about you, but I sure have this lifetime. There's just some things we are meant to do, but we're not meant to do them per se. You just go along and like, ooh, I should do that, and you're compelled to do that. You've never flown a helicopter in your life, but you see one going by or flying by, or you have the opportunity to take a ride in a helicopter. Then all of a sudden you get the sense that I need to become a pilot. Well, it's not too far-fetched to believe that you were some type of pilot in another lifetime. It's just not. It's not far-fetched whatsoever. Continuing that theme. But where the problem would arise is a lot of people are compelled to do these things. You're compelled to do that because you have that set of experience, right? And we are also compelled to act in certain ways, good or bad, due to this spiritual heritage and these characteristic traits that go along with it. It's kind of like the old stories, and there's a common theme here, ladies and gentlemen. All throughout history, anthropology, it's amazing if you go and look at some of the stories. But I can share two with you now that we probably all have heard of. We all hear of the Knights of the Round Table, right? King Arthur and these Knights of the Round Table. There's 12 of them. Then probably the most popular is the 12 tribes. 12 tribes of Judah, right? Now, we ask ourselves, well, how does that make a lot of sense? Even from a biblical standpoint, well, if everyone was from a given race or they were Jewish, why is there such a emphasis on 12? Well, wouldn't these people be relatively the same or related with one another? Now, that's not to offend anyone, by the way, Jew or Christian, just a topic of conversation. Now, but the common theme is 12. Knights of the Round Table. Right? So, what's come up in my research is there's actually, yes, there were 12 main ones, but there is actually 13. 13, ladies and gentlemen. There's one that's never mentioned here all throughout our known history. It would be the 13th tribe, or the 13th knight, or the 13th household, however you want to look at this. Or the 13th being, or sets of beings. Now, and again, this is traced directly back to this time period that I'm speaking about throughout our spiritual history and development to these specific households, empires, and intergalactic, or as you can look at it, technospace societies that pre-existed and actually predated the universe we find ourselves in. And that is the true story of creation. And I won't get in all the details. Like I said, it will be written up in a secondary book, but that's just to touch on some of the brief concepts there, or briefly touch on some of those concepts there. Even though I've kind of danced around it a bit because I don't want to give all the information there that will be in the book, but it will be in detail in the book again. And it's mainly to pique people's interests. And if you think that's batshit crazy, fine. I do realize that some of these things are a bit out of reality or unreal to some of the people out there that don't have an extensive basis of knowledge or don't have extensive experience with Scientology. But that's all right, Again, if you think it's crazy or outlandish, that's fine. You can stay tuned. You can always study it for yourself and make your own determination at a later date. You're able to believe and agree with what you choose, and that's absolutely fine with me. Matter of fact, we don't want you on this side of things if you don't believe it or you don't want to be there. We don't want anybody doing something or forcing anybody to do something they do not want to do, nor do they fundamentally agree with. All right. Now, that being said, that's the two books. Now, of course, as many of you already know, I've updated the website, l1hubbardrising.com. Kind of give it a whole facelift there. Updated everything, put the download section back on there. It's still functioning as a blog and a homepage there. And the only thing that's not on there, of course, is there's a section that hasn't been built out yet for digitalized courses that will be coming out here in the near future as well. So, and again, there's also no longer a donation button on the website. So, if any of you like to make donations or continual donations, please do. It helps me continue and keep the lights on, continuing doing what I'm doing. After this video, I'll put a link below to where you can pay or make any donation that you like to, until I'm able to integrate that and get it back up on the site, which I probably won't do until I implement the courses, because then they'll have to be A lot of those are going to be free, by the way, but to integrate that on the website with the payment for the courses as well as donations and things, I think might as well be done all at the same time. So more than likely that will take place then. But again, I'll put the link below if you do want to support in the meantime. And again, that's much appreciated. Now, as far as courses are concerned, well, actually, I'll start with videos first. I plan to now, at least several times per week, what I'm going to do is put out some videos. I'm going to start flushing out the YouTube channel, as well as I'm beginning to work on some courses and some basic courses. There's going to be a whole lot of free content, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to have coming out, and this is for the beginner and the veteran as well. But what I'd like to do is flush out a basics and at least a basics and an advanced section on my YouTube channel, explaining the basic principles and fundamentals of Dianetics and Scientology. Pretty much every concept to date that you can think of, I'm going to go through and do a presentation and or a discussion. I'll probably label them as discussions and presentations to differentiate between the two. Presentations more than likely are going to be in slideshow format. I'll probably use some type of methodology or slideshow tool and methodology to deliver the presentations. And as far as the discussions, that'll more than likely be just a short video. But I like to flush that channel out again and begin to deliver some of those and explain those concepts and principles. Because there's a large section of even veteran Scientologists that it has been discovered, there's no easy way to say this, that they are practicing standard technology or practicing Dianetics and Scientology correctly. And I will say for the record, no Scientology, any Scientology and Dianetics is better than no Scientology and Dianetics. But I say that and it kind of grits my teeth because there's been a lot of major outpoints and there's just been some major continual mistakes made out within the field that I don't want to point anybody out or call anybody out. It's fine. I understand people are doing the best that they can, which is, of course, okay. But what I hope to do, even for the veterans as well as the beginners, is put this content out, do it in a uniform fashion, and give practical demonstrations that we cannot mistake the way something should actually be done, or just bluntly explain it and give actual real world demonstrations or explanations of that in practice, to where there's no way of mistaking how something is practiced or done in Scientology. Because one liability in the majority of the materials due to when they were written or in written format. And most people don't take the time to do lectures, or they never get to a point in training to where they listen to lectures, which delivered that content and delivered a reality, an ability for people to go out and practice that properly. Much more so over just the written word. That the written word has the liability of is altered and is interpreted differently by how someone is educated, the experiences they have, and above all else, their motivation for being there. If they're self-centered and selfish, reading materials, they're not going to interpret that the same way a humanitarian is, like myself and a lot of the other Scientologists are going to interpret that. You're there for yourself to help somebody else. And of course, all this frames how you interpret something and then you put it into practice later. Now, if you see somebody on a video, like myself or anybody else who decides to help me in the near future making these demonstrations, do it on film. There's no way to mistake how that's done. Somebody will probably still do it in their own fashion, and little tweaks and twists here and there, because everyone does things a little bit differently, but there won't be so much deviation when you see it that way that you can get it totally wrong or deliver a negative or a bad result to one of your clients. That just should not happen. So it is my hopes that by doing that, everyone can see that, and it will allow people to have their own aha moments You know, it'll have people to have their own cognitions or self-realizations. You know, I don't have to force that upon anybody. Let them see it for themselves and make their own determination. And hopefully, a lot of people will see that. And if they had been making a mistake, they will be ethical enough to self-correct that for themselves. So that's the goal with that. And again, those courses, the courses are under construction now. And a good set of those I am going to offer for free or very, very low cost. And then, of course, the Academy, Advanced. And one thing I want to do is re-implement Say No Special Briefing course because it is rumored to have been removed within the Church of Scientology or no longer practice or delivered to the public. I've gotten conflicting stories on that and haven't had the opportunity to trace that down. So it may be that it's just offered to administrators. So, of course, re-implement the Say No Special Briefing course for those who get to that point to where they can have access for that. And, of course, all those will, again, be of cost, but not unreasonable, that they will be at a cost where anyone can reasonably afford them. So those are under construction, and then of course I will be working to deliver discussions and or presentations on a regular basis. And I'll be posting those to my YouTube channel. And another big one, I have some individuals coming down to officially work with me, and of course I already have the HCO set up here at my current location. And it looks like a new organizational structure is beginning to shape up. So if you have any questions, comments on that, you can always post them below. Or if you have any recommendations, you can always get in touch with me. And of course, again, it's probably a long way off, as in, I'd say approximately 5 years off, before we have an official organizational structure up and running and, you know, going. As far as a name and everything else, haven't settled on one yet. Haven't gotten the necessary legalities in place, but that will take place in the near future. So again, if you have any information and data on that, or if you'd like to contribute and help with that specifically, or you have the prerequisite skill set, that would be much appreciated as well. And again, that would be all of your organizations, ladies and gentlemen. So, and again, another very, very exciting thing is we are beginning to formulate up a new streamlined, yes, a new, completely streamlined and dynamite bridge is beginning to shape up. What I mean by that is it's going to be uniform, streamlined, stem to stern. That way, hey, get on that baby, you're smoking all the way through. You're going to get on it, you're not going to fall off, you're not going to drive the car off the side of it. Sure as hell not going to jump off of it because you're discontent with what the hell is going on. You're going to get on, be able to stay on, complete training, complete auditing, and get the results that I, amongst everyone else, have promised. There is a prerequisite promise, ladies and gentlemen, from me to you, and as there should be from every auditor to you when they deliver a service, that you get the desired result that you fucking paid for or you reached for, period. There's no ifs, ands, buts. There's no excuses for that. It's not your fault. It's not the PC's fault. If you walk away from that not getting what was promised, that is not an error on your part. I want people to be asking what the hell the CS did and what the goddamn hell your auditor did, that you walked away from that thing discontent and unhappy. It never happens. You deliver standard technology, you're going to walk away from that session feeling you got exactly what you should have gotten out of that because there's a standard technology that's delivered at every point along it. That needs to be put back in. And that is my promise from me to you. Now, it's still a couple of years off, ladies and gentlemen, so please bear with me. But when that new bridge goes in, I'm going to make damn certain this time that it's uniform, it's applicable, applies to all occasions, and once you get on it, you're going to get on it, stay on it, and when you're done, you're going to get every goddamn thing that you wanted out of it. That being said, again, I'm going to make it a concerted effort to communicate a bit here more and, get some good content out here. And do my best to touch bases with the field out there and start circling the wagons per se, or circling the wagons as they like to say, and we're gonna get this thing cooking, shaking, and moving, and moving forward in the direction that it should be. And again, your questions, comments, concerns, all that is welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Please leave them below in the thread here, and please contribute as well, or contribute to that as well. I mean, as far as your comments and your input, because again, this is going to be, with all the work I've done, everything I've delivered and fulfilled as far as the technology is concerned, it's still a work in progress. There are still some things that need to be corrected and streamlined, and of course, a lot of that has to do with what you personally feel and desire should be there as well, because this is your Scientology as well. You're going to make it your own one day. So this is a collective and concerted effort. This is just not me telling you what to do. This is not some auditor telling you what you should or should not do. It's always, across the board, a team effort, my friends. You pitch in, you chip in, I do, vice versa. We all have our own goals and desires, and that always has to be taken into account, okay? And because, again, that's what formulates the basis of Scientology. Having buildings, having a philosophy, having thousands of sets of materials, all the damn videos and explanations and things in the world are absolutely worthless if you don't have the bodies, or if you don't have these spiritual beings that agree with the advanced spiritual philosophy that we've come to know as Scientology, and believe it so fully and inherently that they're out there participating and helping contribute that. Because there's always a point in the practice of this to where it shifts from others helping us resolve our own case and our own issues in life, to where you're then the person. It has shifted. Then your efforts and your attention and your desires to help others, it shifts. It's no longer about oneself. It's about helping the group. It's about helping other individuals, auditing and practicing with other individuals, which again comes back to you. Because if you can't audit, ladies and gentlemen, a person can't get on solo. They can't get up and traverse the upper levels of the bridge, and they'll never be successful, because they can never be a good solo auditor. They've never been an auditor. Can't audit grades. You can't go solo and then up through and traverse the upper levels of the bridge. It just doesn't work that way. It's out sequence if you do. So a large part of that is then shifting one's attention and beginning to help others, and in turn you get the practical auditing experience necessary to then later come back or continually concentrate on one's own case. But that becomes the smaller portion of one's attention, in the bigger scheme of things, and the smaller portions of one's effort in the larger scheme of things. So again, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the updates for now. That's pretty much all I got for now, moving forward over the next couple of months. But again, I'm going to be pumping out this content and posting that, so keep your eyes out for it. And again, if you'd like to donate, my PayPal email will be in the link below, thetastatic@gmail.com. thetastatic20@gmail.com. You can email me there as well. And of course, the website's lronhubbardrising.com, all one word. And please visit the site, check it out. There's usually a new blog up there to read. As well, you can access the download section on there if you want to download any of the HCOBs, policy letters, or Infinity series that I've released over the past year and a half. You can download it from the site there. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, have a wonderful evening. Onward and upward.